Welcome to Government Connection. I'm Sam Barron, and tonight we're going to be talking about gangs, gang activity, and something new in Tucson, the Tucson Police Gang Outreach Unit. And tonight, my special guests are two members of the Gang Outreach Unit. First Officer Mark Doe.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for visiting with us tonight on Government Connection.
Thank you.
And Officer Pablo Camargo.
Camargo.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for being here tonight.
No, thanks for having us.
Let me start with you, Mark, and ask you, Gang Outreach Unit, we're not maybe familiar, is that something new? We're not familiar with that term. We know about the people who go out and try to counteract gang activity.
Right.
That's the Gang Tactical Unit, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So what's the difference between the Gang Tactical Unit and what is the Gang Outreach Unit?
The gang tactical squad typically goes out and they are in the reactive side of it. They're out usually looking for wanted people and doing the investigative part of it. With the Gang Outreach Unit, what we try and do is we try to come out and meet with kids that are at risk. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're involved in gangs, but maybe around that have a lot of influences around them and possibly on that verge of falling into gangs or being able to still be worked with and maybe have a positive influence on them. We've had some clients that we've had quite a bit of success with that we are priding ourselves with right now, and just with the fact that the kids need this positive influence. Our chief decided, you know what, this would be a great time for the officers to be in contact with the kids and have some kind of impact on them.
Well, Officer Camargo,
Yes, sir.
These are kids that sounds like they're kind of on the bubble then.
Some.
They could go this way or they could go that way.
It's both. Some are actually in a gang already, and they're either moved away from their side of town, and they don't want to live that lifestyle anymore. And so they want out, but they never ever thought about getting out, so they don't know how. And so that's where we'll step in and try to find them some sort of extracurricular activity, some sports, something to get them involved in, as opposed to what they used to do, which was just hanging out or being in their gang. And there are others that are on the bubble. That at some point, we get referrals through schools, and so the school recognized the kids at one point doing well, but start noticing them hanging out with the wrong crowd, so to speak, and their grades starting to fall. And so then they'll ask us to come and talk to these kids and try to get them on the right track.
Mm-hmm. And we're saying kids, I said that too, I noticed, and then I thought, well...
It's because we're getting older.
What's the age range?
Right now, the age range is anywhere from 19 to maybe 9 to 16. Most of the kids we're dealing with are middle school age, 12, 13, 14. Again, we go and talk to kids that are a lot younger as well, elementary school. Mark talked to a kid yesterday who was in 5th grade. We talked to a couple of kids earlier this week at Pueblo that are 16, 17. It's more the younger kids we think we can have a bigger influence on, as opposed to the older ones who are more set in their ways and are almost at the age where they can fend for themselves, I guess. They're almost adults.
And you get referrals from schools, from teachers, from schools, from resource officers. Who else? How else are you getting referrals for the contacts you go out and make?
Through schools, counselors, university physicians, people like that have had contact with these kids and really see the inside part of it, have more exposure to the other side of them, seeing what it is that they are like when they're not having other influences around them. With gangs, there's obviously a lot of peer pressure. In our talkings, when we speak to the kids, we try to do it on a one-on-one basis, and this being for the fact that the kids will have two entirely different attitudes. When you have them by themselves, they're very true, very honest about how they feel, and they hide a lot of their feelings when they have their friends around them and they have other influences. They don't want to look weak. They don't want to look like they're not part or have any pride of where they live, or if they're a Crip, or if they're a Blood, or where they're from exactly. So we get a lot of the kids through different agencies in different ways, and these the kids are typically they have a good. Some of them have good parenting around them, and they've just made some bad decisions, and parents are out looking for help, and that's when we'll be able to get a call. So we also even get them from parents contacting us and trying to find out where, or how it is we can help them out.
What I think a lot of us have kind of some notion about gang activity, maybe some of the myths and the facts about it. But really, what are some of the things about gang activity in Tucson that maybe most people have an incorrect impression of, or some of the things that would surprise us to hear?
One of them might be that there might be I want to say a bigger gang problem than there actually is. But when they think of gangs, a lot of people tend to think of LA, where it's, I guess, the worst of the worst as far as gang problems go. Unfortunately for us, we sort of follow LA's trends. And the gang problem here isn't as bad as LA, of course, but there are quite a few gangs. There are quite a few gang members. A lot of the gangs here are a threat, not just to each other, but to everyone else and public safety in general. One of the, I guess, the other myth is they see some kids dressed a particular way and just think that it might just be a style that the kid's dressing and he's not actually in a gang. Mostly for parents, I think, where they think the kid and his friends are just, it's a fad or a phase they're going through, when in fact they actually are their own small little gang. And outside of the home, when they're not behaving, the way they do at home, outside, when they're in their little gang, that's when they're picking fights, looking for fights, stealing, and doing all these other things.
What else? Are there other things that maybe I'd be surprised to hear about gang activity, or the way, or how kids are recruited, and what, some of the work you're doing to help them make better decisions about whether they should go along with being recruited or kind of push back a little bit?
Sure, and it's a tough sell for us. I mean, us as officers are competing with, you have anywhere from narcotics to guns to the sense of belonging to something, whereas typically as a police department, I mean, we don't have a whole lot of money to offer these kids or to buy them new clothes, or we're obviously not going to be giving them drugs, and we're not going to be giving them guns. So we have a much tougher job on our end, having to play by the rules and do the right thing and have a positive influence with these kids, versus the gang members who are out there consistently meeting with these kids. They're after school every day. I mean, there's a myth that maybe only kids that are that live in poverty are the ones that are joining gangs, and that's a myth. We have, we have parents. Both parents are working all the time, trying to give their child everything that they can, more than what they had. Just typically, historically, that's what we try to do as parents. The problem behind that is when parents are also both at work, there's nobody home to have an influence on that kid, so he looks outward to the world to see what else he can find, and then therefore finding gangs and having a sense of belonging and stuff like that is where they'll turn to.
And what I think I heard you say was that the gangs are actively recruiting all the time. They're always trying to get new members. Is that right?
Yeah, well, and that's kind of how they secure their tomorrow. Is just they continue to grow by recruiting numbers and being the bigger gang, and they obviously assume that they are going to be able to claim more territory, and if they go to fights, they'll have more people on their team. It's just pretty much something like the kickball teams from back in in elementary. The bigger kids and the better players, you're going to win, and that's kind of the way the gangs look at these as well.
As a parent, I mean, sometimes I think I'm the stupid parent, and is it really that the parent is the last to know that their kid has gotten involved in it?
Sometimes, and sometimes it's not the parents' fault, just because these trends go. Currently, the style is to wear baggy clothes, and so their kids will wear baggy clothes, and the parent, I guess you can call them naive at some time, recognize the kids wearing baggy clothes, but they don't put one and one together when the shoelaces are red and the belt's red and the shirt's red and the hat's red and the kid refuses to wear any kind of blue. They just assume that when the kid tells them he likes red and doesn't like blue, that's what it is. And along with the fact that all his other friends are wearing red as well. But then you have the parents that are wearing gangs or are still in gangs as well. This child may be second, third generation gang member, and they almost don't stand a chance because their parents were gang members and their grandparents at one time were gang members, and so
So we're talking third generation?
Yes, sir. And yeah, they're easily third, fourth generation. And as kids, they're taught to just wear red, just wear blue, and to hate the other colors, to hate the other people. Anyone, you know, if they grew up on the west side, and then everyone from the south side is no good, basically. And that's who, if they see somebody from the south side, that's who they're going to fight with. Or it's almost like a racial war, just within, like, you know, some like a hate war, I guess you can say.
Mm-hmm.
Or just because you're not from this side of town or you don't wear this color, then you don't like them. And so it's a little bit of both. Some parenting, some parents not knowing what's going on with their kids, and other parents knowing exactly what's going on with their kids, but choose to have their kids grow up that way.
And along those same lines with the ideological type of gangs that we tend to see occasionally, the white supremacist, the Aryan Brotherhood, that kind of stuff. Officer Camargo hit it right on the spot with when he said that it's something that's ingrained in them. There's no difference in really the way that these kids are brought up or taught. They're somewhat brainwashed into believing that you cannot touch a red marker, a red pen. We've had young fifth graders that say, "I won't touch red construction paper. I won't use a red marker," because he's had so much influence around him, stating that if he was, you know, that's a blood color. This is, you know, you're a Crip. You can't touch this. It, you know, would be totally against our rules and regulations, kind of. Yeah.
Now, are the teachers trained to know that? If they see that in a classroom, are they aware, and are they able to then contact somebody and maybe get in touch with you guys and intervene a little bit?
Some. As far as contacting us, we've only been around maybe 6 months tops, and so prior to that, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what they did or how they handled it. There's a lot of training out there that they don't have, and there's small cues that goes on. The kids sort of pull the wool over the teacher's head, and small things that they do that the teachers don't recognize. An example: I talked to a kid yesterday at a nearby middle school, who he's from the west side, and when he writes his name, he crosses out the S's on his name. That's to show disrespect to the south side, and he's been turning his homework and his regular schoolwork in this particular way with the S's crossed out, and no one recognizes it or does anything about it, and they accept it.
Is that part of your job now with this new unit, is to go and educate the schools and the teachers and to help them identify these kinds of things?
Just a few hours earlier today, that's exactly what we were doing. Yeah. We were out with a few of TOSD suspension programs and speaking to them. We've spoken to several of the other high schools, faculty, their securities, TUSD security, Sunnyside High School security. We've gone out and done presentations and kind of pointed out things, said this is what to look for. And with that happening, we've had several teachers step up and say, hey, I have seen that. I do recognize that, you know, little Johnny or whatever, he does have that on his backpack. It is on his, that's why he's wearing his shoelaces. So and a lot of these teachers that we have are young, maybe from back east, and maybe have only been teaching at the elementary level and never suspected it. Now they're junior high and high school level dealing with an entirely different element. Right. So we are definitely opening ourselves up to that. We want to educate as many people as we can. It would help us make it easier for us to be able to identify more of these kids and maybe reach out to more kids.
We're here on Government Connection talking about the Gang Outreach Unit. And if you want to contact the Gang Outreach Unit, the information's on your screen. They're located at the Tucson Police Department, and a contact phone number, 351-4441. And if you're a teacher out there and you'd like to have these officers come to your school, this is a good way to call the number and get in touch. If you're a parent and you've got questions, this would be something you could do also, 351-4441. Now, you both told me that you grew up here in Tucson, and let's see, Pablo, you grew up, was it the west side?
Yes, sir.
And Mark on the south side?
Yes, sir.
And I think, and now do you work all over the city, or do you work primarily in those areas? I think we tend to think of gang activities being limited to certain neighborhoods, but that's not really true, is it?
No, actually, we do work citywide. And gangs are not tied to isolated in one particular part of town. They are essentially all over Tucson. And it's through different sources. One of them that I will bring up will be Section 8. Sometimes the housing for the lower income kids, they move them out. We have kids that claim West Side that live way out Pantano and Golf Links area. Kids from different neighborhoods that are moved. Maybe mom and dad got a divorce and now they've separated and gone to live with one or the other and moved entirely out of their neighborhood. So gangs is not isolated to one area in particular.
There's no area that's totally gang-free.
No, of course not. And as far as looking for kids, currently there's only Mark and I. And so we're sort of restricted as far as the schools we can go and help out right now. We're hopefully in the process of getting, I think, 3 more officers to join our unit, which will help us expand a little bit. We had 4, 1 got deployed and 1 got promoted. So we had to sort of slim down our activities as far as where we're looking for the kids or gang members. And as far as the city being gang-free on the east side or north side, absolutely not. And even if the gang problem itself isn't out there, the possibility of the gangs going out to the neighborhoods and looking for a possible house to break into or just looking for some sort of activity is always out there as well. So it's something that's going to be around. It's around everywhere, and it's just up to people to be somewhat vigilant, recognizing and contacting their local authorities.
I think it sounds like, this is true with healthcare and a lot of things, that if you put some resources into prevention, you really are going to get a big payback because then you don't have on the other side of it to clean up the mess at the end. That's the theory, right?
Yeah, that's the theory. And for instance, the Tucson Police Department, our chief and our command staff have, we're trying to attack the gang problem from every angle, from the gang tactical squad who does the arrests and investigations to our gang detectives who are out there constantly investigating multiple investigations that include gang type of activity or gang victims or homicide, gang members. And then you have our gang outreach unit, which we're trying to stop. I guess, we have the Band-Aid and we're trying to stop it at the source. It's going to be our best effort. We're only the 4th outreach unit, gang outreach unit in the nation. Chicago has one, LAPD and LA County Sheriff's Department have the other 2. And how do we measure success? We won't know. This is something that...
How'd you know I was going to ask you that next?
Just,
But that's going to be a question.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we've even asked ourselves, at what point do we figure that we've had any success with these kids? From what we've seen in the way the kids that we've worked with, we take some of the smallest things, for them attending school all week, for them not getting suspended from school as a positive.
Yeah.
We have to start small.
Baby steps.
Yeah, baby steps, absolutely. Yeah. And we've had some, success stories as well, bigger success stories than that in the short time that we've been up and running. So we can definitely, me and Pablo always say we believe we have the best job in the department right now because we did this as patrol officers, but there was a lot of times that the call load does not allow you to do this. In the summertime, it's not uncommon for the department to respond to 1,400 calls for service in a 24-hour period. So the time to stop and actually talk to a kid and have an influence, really not there. But at this level, we're having that impact.
You're out there in the community, you're talking to people,
exactly.
You're talking to
doing what I wanted to do on patrol, but I never had the time to do.
Yes.
So it's, like Mark said,
You're not just talking to the people in the schools, you're talking to neighborhood people.
Yeah, parents, that's a big thing also is going into the home. Some parents, again, like the clothing, don't know the kids in the gang or don't believe their kids in the gang. And so with their permission, we'll tell them, actually your kid's admitted to me that he's in a gang. And they'll be surprised. And then with the parents' permission, we check the kids' room with the kids' permission as well. We go into the bedroom and start pointing out certain things in the bedroom that indicate that they are in a particular gang. We've had that also where parents call up and say, I think my son might be involved in a gang. Could you come and either educate us on it or see what you think? Take a look at the house and see what you think. And some are and some aren't. And having the kids sit down with the parent and having a one-on-one with them, and they'll open up and they'll admit it. And again, to the parent's surprise, where they just had no clue.
Do you think things are different here in Tucson than they are, LA? I guess we hear a lot about even the LA gangs trying to come here and infiltrate. Or how about Pittsburgh, where my brother lives? Is it different here in Tucson? Are you able to learn from what's going on in these other cities?
It's hard to say. I've never been to Pittsburgh, so I wouldn't know what the gangs are like over there. It's going to be different everywhere. Just lifestyles are different. Economic status is different. Our proximity to the border is different. A big influence is the drugs. Just because of our proximity to the border on I-10, drugs play a huge factor in not just gangs, but what goes on in Tucson. And so those bring the outside influences. You have these gangs from New Mexico, from California, from Phoenix that want to come down to Tucson and start somewhat taking over some of the drug trade, because it's cheaper for them to come down here and just take over, I guess you can say, or at least set up shop, as opposed to just buying it from someone else.
Yeah, cutting out the middleman is what they're doing. They're setting themselves up for a much more profitable market for themselves. Typically, you know, our friends through the DEA have explained to us that at any given time there's 1 million pounds of marijuana in Tucson. And the common cost for a pound of marijuana in Tucson is about $400. You get it out to the East Coast, you can, you know, sell that for $1,200 to $1,400 a pound. And of course, having that Interstate 10 runs right through Tucson, we're so close to the border, we have those influences where they come in. That's where the home invasions and the robberies and a lot of which become very violent crimes in Tucson. And again, they're tied back to the gangs, to homicide, to robbery, aggravated assaults. We have a lot of cases that are being investigated by our gang detectives. And those would be the reasons and the ties that we have with those.
You're watching Government Connection. Next week, we've got a terrific show, Equal Voices for Families campaign. That'll be next week live, 6 p.m. on April 16th. Back to the Gang Outreach Unit. You mentioned murders. I heard recently, I heard a talk by an FBI agent who's involved with the gang task force here in Tucson. He said if you see in the news, anytime there's been a drive-by shooting or anything like that, 100% of the time that's gang-related. Almost every murder in Tucson is gang-related. Would you agree with that? Is that
no, that
overstating
one of those
the
other
case?
faults. Yeah, it's overstating the case. You can attribute several to gangs or being gang-related, but not all of them. A big portion of it's going to be the drugs that are here in town. A lot of the home invasions. You'll have some that are gang-related, but a lot of them it's you'll have people just that are involved in drugs. It's most of it's drug-related, but not gang-related, I guess you can say. The homicides, same thing. I think currently they're investigating, was it 7?
7.
7 out of 24 homicides that have occurred so far this year. A couple of others that aren't being investigated by the gang detectives can be, I guess you can say, considered gang-related, but it was sort of after the fact they realized they were gang members. So it's not even half of what the numbers indicate. But again, with the drugs, you get the gangs. And
Carjackings?
some, it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you don't actually catch the individual who's doing the carjacking, and you don't know if it's an individual that's just high on drugs, or if, or who may be a gang member, or if it's a gang member just trying to steal a car.
Because there's a severe meth problem also.
Yes, definitely.
Some of that is, and some of that is not
and-
related to gangs?
Correct.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And that's the thing. A lot of it's going to be depend on the drug abuser. Sometimes he needs a quick fix, and so that's where the burglaries come to play. The purse snatchings. A lot of gangs won't really go out and do purse snatchings. They'll commit crimes against one another. Very seldom do they commit crimes against just an everyday citizen.
Okay, so part of the solution is you're part of the solution. Is part of the solution something that neighborhood associations and neighbors can do? What can parents do? Let's try to end this on a kind of the what can we do to make things better note. Absolutely.
What we would ask, and one thing that we just want everybody to understand is that there's more good people here in Tucson than there is bad, by far. And so we want people, I know there is some fear of retaliation and stuff like that, but we stand with our hands tied. If the report was never made, it never happened, is the way it works out. I would urge anybody that's watching the program and any citizen of Tucson, if you have a problem, believe it's gang related, whether it be a house, a vehicle, anything suspicious, contact your neighbors, find out what's going on in your own neighborhood. The bad guys are not going to do stuff with a patrol car parked down the street. So you live there, they're your neighborhoods, these are your children we're talking about. We're here simply to do our job. We want to be successful. You want us to be successful in your neighborhoods, contact us. Let us know what we can do. We are trying to facilitate everybody in every aspect that we can, and we would love to help anybody that we can, but we can only do this if we have the information from the public.
And you can be contacted again at 351-4441. But if somebody's actually sees a crime in progress, they call 911.
No,
right?
yeah.
We're not going to call you guys to come out. But for example, a neighborhood association, can they ask you to come speak at a neighborhood association
Yes,
meeting,
definitely.
something like that?
Yeah, we've done neighborhood association meetings. We'll speak not necessarily to anyone, but anyone that wants to learn,
Parents groups, school parents groups, things like
Definitely,
that. What do they call them? Site council,
Yes.
Yes.
things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And call, and if we're not able to, we'll figure something out.
Yeah, we'll work it in our schedule somehow, some way.
Absolutely. Because we know this is a big issue, and we want to help out as best we can. So and we know that in educating the public, giving them a little bit of a heads up, we'd be able to do that.
Yeah, and we don't have all the answers.
Well, there's just two of you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
But
we need to get you some help.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And by educating the public, that's where they can become our help. That's where they just go online also. They can look up certain websites to just get some more interest and not just take the kids' word at that. If they say they're not in a gang yet, they look like they're in a gang and they behave in a certain way and they're constantly getting in fights and all the signs are there, but they keep telling the parent that they're not and the parent believes them.
Right.
You want to almost fool themselves. Yeah, absolutely.
Of course you do.
Absolutely.
But sometimes you got to realize that they're kids and kids lie sometimes. It's not nice to. Yeah, I know not yours, but some kids.
I don't know about that. Well, that's great, and I think there's hope. There's hope out there. I like the fact that you're getting to kids before it's too late.
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
Yes.
All right, Officer Pablo Camargo and Mark Doe from the Tucson Police Department Gang Outreach Unit. I think you learned something. I know I did. Thanks for joining us today on Government Connection. We'll see you next time.